if we look at physics, energy is neither created nor destroyed.
Right.
The energy that animates a human body, a mortal soul, has to go somewhere.
Exactly.
So
That's
for
what
the
I
people
say.
who say, oh, there's no such things as ghosts, it's like, dude, you can't deny physics. This is a law. I didn't make it up, but I'm watching it. And if you can see between realms, you see these people. So yes, if you cross the soul over, then you're going to not have that pain anymore, which is the same point in crossing over. Then they don't have, you aren't surrounded by the darkness because it's almost a sooty feeling, like your house is never clean when there's a ghost. It's the weirdest thing.
Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I'm very happy to welcome Miss Tina Erwin here. Now, she is an author and a ghost helper. So we're going to learn about that and see what kind of positivity and some comfort we can get from this conversation. Before all that, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really thrilled to get to be here. I so appreciate this. I spent 20 years in the Navy. I was a terrorist expert for the submarine force.
Wow.
And I designed equipment that protected submarines from terrorist attack. And my sweet husband is delivering coffee. Thank you, sweetheart. And when you do that, you discover that there are all kinds of threats. And there isn't just one thing that protects a submarine from an attack. And there isn't just one thing that protects an individual from something that's happening in their life. You need layers and layers of things. So when someone tells me that they think their house is haunted or they think they have a ghost and they want some help, I offer them a variety of things because you don't go to Wisconsin in the winter and in your underwear. You wear various layers. And if you think your house is haunted, and I hear this constantly, I just know my house is haunted. It could be from someone you met at a mall who thought your energy was wonderful and they followed you home. It could be from a ghost that died there 100 years ago. And so you're sensing that ghost, or a ghost that passed through and died 400 years ago. So the things that don't work are important to know, as well as what does work. And I stumbled on this because I'm a little bit psychic, to be blunt, and it's like everywhere I went there were ghosts, and they would come at me in hospitals or in certain places, and I just felt like I was bombarded. And I'm sure there are many people out there who consider themselves empaths. Mm-hmm. And they're overwhelmed by what hits them, and they go, oh my gosh, what can I do? And the answer to that is you need some layers of protection so you don't get bombarded. You need to strengthen your auric field, your immune system, your shields up force field. That's one of the elements. But the other side of this coin is, if you are that ghost, what is the compassion that you would want? Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to create a bridge so that instead of being fearful and angry, and to get these ghost hunters out there with their equipment, what if you took a different approach and looked at what would I want if I were a 7-year-old who died? Mm-hmm. And I can't find my mommy, which happened to my grandson. We had a situation where I got a phone call when he was about 11 months old, and our kids live a mile from us. And my son says, hey, Jack's crying in a way we've never heard before. Sounds like something is weird. He keeps looking at in this one section, one part of the wall. He said, can you take a look? And so I said, sure. And I do this little thing called remote viewing. So I can remote view the house, I can remote view anywhere, as long as I have coordinates. I remote viewed the house, and there standing next to him, pinching him, is this little girl, and she's about 8. And she followed my other grandchild, my granddaughter, home, who she was 8 at the time. Mm-hmm. And she followed her home from school. And she said, you can see me. And I said, yes, sweetie, I can see you. And what I look like to her is this sort of whitish glowing being that she doesn't quite understand, but at least she can talk to somebody. And I said, sweetie, why are you harming the baby? And she said, because the baby can see me. Nobody seems to talk to me, but he responds to me. She wouldn't use the word respond, but he can see me.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay. And I said, do you know where your mommy is? And she said, she's at home and she just keeps crying and crying. And I talked to her and she doesn't talk to me. She just cries. And I said, sweetheart, when was the last thing you remember? Oh, I was swinging. I said, okay. And she said, I was swinging so high. And I said, and when you were swinging super high, sweetie, did you let go? Yeah, I was going to fly like the birds. And then I was standing next to mommy and she was crying and I don't understand.
Wow.
And I said, sweetie, when you let go of the swing, you fell. And when you fell, you died. I'm so sorry to tell you that. And while I'm having this conversation, I bring in an angel. And anyone listening to this podcast can ask an angel to come and help a sad and lonely ghost. I'm not special. I'm just helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone can be helpful. Anyone can request an angel. So I brought in a child angel and took her hand. And I said, see how beautiful that is and that beautiful light? And she said, yes. So you're going to walk across that pretty bridge with this angel and you're going to be okay. And it'll help your mommy if you do that. Okay, mommy's so sad. And I said, this will help her a little bit. And then she was gone and Jack stopped crying and went to sleep.
Wow.
It's like
That's
somebody-
crazy.
It's like somebody turned a switch. Okay, so you can't remote view and you can't project and talk to a ghost that way. Okay. But let's say that you suspect there's someone there. Well, that's why I wrote the Crossing Over Prayer book. I wrote this book because you shouldn't have to pay a medium to cross over your child who dies or your brother or son or neighbor who commits suicide.
Mm.
You should be able to do something that gives you peace and that gives that soul who's died peace. It's so empowering. And I wrote the Crossing Over Prayer because I dropped my cell phone. I had an appointment at the Apple store and I was killing time at this gorgeous mall in San Diego. And I went to a handbag store and I had just written the first ghost book. I wrote Ghost Stories from the Ghost Point of View. And I was talking to some of the people in the store about it. And the manager says, oh my gosh, this store is so haunted. You just won't believe it. Can you clear the store? And I said, sure, I can clear the store. Sure. And they had a few homeless people and a pair of women who shopped till they dropped. They died in a car accident and then went back to shopping.
Oh my
So I
gosh.
crossed them all over and I said, tell me if that holds. And so it held for a couple days. And then she called me back. She said, I think there's more. We now see different racks move and we feel creepy when we open the store. And I said, I'm going to write a prayer for you. And you can be our beta testers for this prayer. And she was the beta tester. And they said that prayer every morning because there are a lot of homeless people behind the mall near the railroad tracks that went through Fashion Valley Mall in San Diego. A lot of stores in Fashion Valley were haunted, as high-end and gorgeous a place as it is. And she and several of her staff cleared the store every day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, her husband is a physician, and every day he'd come home, he would be grumpy. And I said, I bet you he's bringing home dead. I said, say the prayer when he walks through the door and see if it changes his disposition. She said, okay. So she beta tested it and their evenings were so much more pleasant and he wasn't angry. And he began to notice it. And this is how you change the world. One interesting, positive experience at a time, which is exactly what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
My goal is to empower people. I have prayers if someone took their life. There's this, the compassion prayer for suicide. If your loved one is murdered, what prayer do you say? There's a crossing over prayer for a murdered loved one. There's a crossing over prayer for the murderer. And I say that because people say, oh, that person should just go to a dark place. Dude, you don't want them in a dark place because they're going to come back from a dark place and continue to that cycle, life after life of murdering. How do you break the cycle? You cross them into the higher realms of the heaven world. In my Father's house are many mansions.
Mm-hmm.
The karma that soul created isn't erased when they cross over. That's a really important point. The soul has to be restored enough so that they come back into the next life, and maybe that life they don't kill anybody. They still have to face the karma, but that murderer isn't haunting the people he murdered, and I've watched this many times, and he or she isn't haunting living people. It's a huge spiritual service to cross over someone who is super dark.
Right.
And let me stop for a minute. I'm chattering on and on here. Do you have questions?
Well, I had a few comments actually to make. Number one, I don't know if you were aware, but I am a paranormal investigator. Have been for 8 years now. The first crew that I was on, they seem to have taken the what I call the ghost adventurers way of doing things,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't approve of because it's a lot of provoking and things like that, and I feel that's disrespectful. My wife, whom actually when I met her, she was on the team, and that's how I got on. But she's an empath. She feels the same way I do. I think when you go in and you do all this provoking, hey, come attack me, all this kind of garbage, it's just so disrespectful. This person's already, passed away, is still here. That's got to be torture. Why do you want to further torture them? Another thing is, why shouldn't we take that approach of let's help them pass on, move on, not stay here, not continue to be tortured. Well, I wouldn't want to have to be stuck here. I would want somebody to help me if I didn't cross over. And what you said a while ago about the like a murderer, I mean, my first reaction is let them go to hell, but it makes sense what you're saying, and I imagine that's kind of controversial with some people. Why would you want to cross them over and la 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 la? But why would you want that bad karma to continue as well? My father and my brother both ended their own lives. One thing that we've always been told is that if you take your own life, you're going straight to hell. I don't want to think of it that way.
Can I offer you a different viewpoint?
Yes, please.
I have personally crossed over thousands and thousands and thousands of people who took their own life.
Mm-hmm.
And one man just walked right into my bedroom when we were still living in San Diego, and it was my neighbor, and he'd shot himself. And no one, that's why Ghost Stories from the Ghost Point of View, that 3-volume series is so important, because you never think about what it's like to be dead.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have taken your own life, there is a fundamental, deep, crushing sadness that lives within you. And for the people who say, oh, they go straight to hell, I beg to differ. These are people who are the most deserving of our compassion. They're the most deserving of our help. And the compassion prayer for suicide is designed to open up a doorway of light that they haven't been able to find when they were in a mortal body, And after they've taken their life, they're so sorry. It's not any better on the other side when you're in that much darkness. It just continues.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so bewildered, and there's no one to ask for help. But every single one of us has the power to help them. Let's say that you never heard of me or my crossing over prayer book, but you wanted to bring in an angel and say, my family member took their life. I am asking for an angel or a team of angels to wrap my brother, husband, father, son, daughter, whatever, in a blanket of healing light and take them by the hand into the light of the divine. Because we are loved beyond measure. I think if we had even a modicum of an idea of how much we are loved, outside of the bounds of religion or dogma or doctrine, the simplest message is love. Love is always the answer. And when someone is so profoundly depressed for, a laundry list of reasons, when you cross them over without judgment or prejudice, with just compassion, it lifts your grief. Because one of the reasons they believe, people say, oh, suicide's contagious in families. It is not contagious. It's that the person who took their life shadows the living people, so that the living person is in resonance with the energy of suicide. And it's really a toxic energy. And when you cross that person over, what you've done is you've helped yourself and every family member. In fact, there's a story that my former business partner and I had of a woman in South Africa, and her life was it just didn't work. She was having suicidal ideation, and her business didn't work. She couldn't get her love life. I mean, it was horrible. Come to find out, 17 family members took their lives. All of them were with her. Once they were crossed over, she had a good relationship. Her business took off. She wasn't depressed anymore. This is why certain bridges where people take their lives, all these people are in resonance. Cross those people over at that bridge and clean it up, change the energy. Metal holds on to that energy. Yeah. So does this make any sense? How is this feeling for you?
Well, I'm getting some relief, number one. Now I will say that I was talking to my wife about this the other day, and we have a friend who is a medium, and I said, talk to her about this because it has been bothering me a lot lately. And she did tell me that, because he had hung himself, he had, I guess he had changed his mind, but he was already at that point where he couldn't help himself, get down.
Yeah. Got it.
And he was very apologetic, and he was actually calling out to God at that point. And that he is now, I guess, because I've been thinking a lot about him lately, apparently he's preparing to be a guide for someone else. So that's given me some relief.
Yes, but he shouldn't be a guide for anybody. He needs to cross over. I hate to disagree with the medium, but I absolutely disagree with the medium. On ghosthelpers.com website,
mm-hmm.
There is the compassion prayer for suicide. It's absolutely free. Anyone can read that prayer. There are several prayers on that website that are free for anyone who wants to read them for a loved one. And cross him over. You will feel a shift. Say it at least 3 times. You can say it 4 or 5 times. And when you put your heart and soul into it, when you open your heart through this prayer, you basically become like an agent assisting him to find the light. If someone takes their life, they don't have the wisdom to be a guide for anyone else. The frequency is simply too low. There's a wonderful book written by a man named David Hawkins called Power versus Force. And it's one of the most remarkable books that discusses frequency that anyone can read. I highly recommend it. He's a wonderful author. I've written a bunch of books, but I'm more than willing to recommend the books of other authors I feel will absolutely benefit anyone who reads them. And David's book, Power versus Force, is a tremendous book. And we're seeing, I mean, from a military perspective, people are taking their own lives at an ever increasing rate right
Yes.
now.
Mm-hmm.
And your show today can do huge service for these families. I had actually, there's a section of the book where I talk about this mom from South Dakota. Her 17-year-old son took his life, and she contacted me. I mean, I didn't know her. And she said, "Can you cross my son over?" And I said, "Of course I can, but it's better if you do it. And if you do it, you will be empowered." And she was, when a family member takes their life, the remaining family feels levels of guilt they didn't know they could feel. Somehow they should have done something. They should have said something. They should have seen something. They should have responded. They should have, must have. Why didn't they? If only.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no place to go with that. You don't know what was in the person's mind. And so instead of being tortured with that, accept that this person may have, by the way, taken their own life after life after life after life. I've had clients where we went back through past lives, and every life they took their life. But the compassion of God is so great. They are not punished. They are returned with and offered another opportunity to change their future. And when you cross them over, you restore pieces of their soul that may have been missing. They don't come back right away. They're given healing and counseling. They're given so much love that when they face the next life, they're far better equipped. That's why crossing them over is the greatest service you can do. Well, this lovely lady crossed him over, and she felt a shift. She couldn't believe how much better she felt emotionally. And then she wrote to me and she said, "I crossed him over, but I want you to write me another prayer, and a prayer I can say for him every night because I will always love him. Can you do that?" He said, "Coming right up." So I wrote a prayer for the families to say for their loved one after they've crossed over. So you still feel you have a connection, that you're sending them love, and you're letting them know that they still live in your heart. They are not forgotten. And it has changed her. And my statement to her was this: it's possible that your son took his life over many, many lifetimes, but in this life you crossed him over. And this may be the first time he has had this opportunity. And because of this opportunity, in future lives, you may have changed his future for 1,000 years because of this one act. You took a tragedy and you created a triumph. Mm. And she writes me now and then. She can't believe how much better she feels. Prayer heals us, especially when you have prayer that is directed in a way that gives you solace.
Well, I truly believe that God is a purpose for me. And the reason why I say that is I tried to take my own life several times when I was younger. And yet I survived. I also have had some health scares that I rightfully shouldn't be here. I had a heart attack when I was 36.
Oh my gosh.
I'm surrounded by family and friends who have committed suicide. It's crazy how many people around me have done that. And yet here I am, and I feel this need to help other people. I don't make a ton of money doing this, but I feel like it needs to be done. And the money doesn't matter. Even if it's helping one person, I just feel like I need to. Is that why I'm still here? Is God using me to help other people? Or, I mean, why am I still here?
I'm not qualified to answer that. And if I even attempted an answer, you should question me. What I can say, because I am bound by spiritual law very heavily, what I can tell you is when a mortal person chooses to do spiritual service, it changes their frequency and it puts them in direct connection with God. If you're inviting the light of Christ consciousness, if you're inviting the compassion of the Buddha nature, the Bodhisattva, or all of the beauty of all of the faiths on earth, when you invite that into yourself, it shifts your frequency and it helps you to keep on living in a world that may seem like it's kind of gone crazy sometimes. And that's the macrocosm. But the microcosm is if there are those around you who are sad, that makes it very, very difficult. Perhaps it might be, and I'm offering this of some service, to say the compassion prayer for suicide on your show if it's something you feel would be a benefit.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, then let me pull this up.
And another thing that I've noticed is I seem to draw certain spirits. One of our first major investigations was at a hospital here in Texas. And when I left, I kept feeling this, like, it's hard to describe. It's a pain that I had in my stomach that I had never felt before. It's like a knife was just being stuck into me. And one of the pictures that we had taken out there, it looks like a hand is grabbing me right where that pain is at. Now, I took it as a coincidence and just the light happened to be hitting me in that spot or whatnot, but everybody else seems to think that it's a hand. And speaking with a medium, she said that apparently because there was children that had been at that hospital, and there was a child there that had been in a wheelchair, and being that I'm a father and a grandfather, he was kind of looking for a fatherly figure and attached to me, and didn't mean to, but he was the one that was causing me the pain. And anyway, I was told to go talk to another friend of mine who he has an ability to help spirits pass
Right,
on. And so I immediately talking to him, the pain went away.
right. Yeah,
Didn't come back.
it's called an attachment.
That was
And that
crazy.
absolutely, if we look at physics, energy is neither created nor destroyed.
Right.
The energy that animates a human body, a mortal soul, has to go somewhere.
Exactly.
So
That's
for
what
the
I
people
say.
who say, oh, there's no such things as ghosts, it's like, dude, you can't deny physics. This is a law. I didn't make it up, but I'm watching it. And if you can see between realms, you see these people. So yes, if you cross the soul over, then you're going to not have that pain anymore, which is the same point in crossing over a suicide. Then you aren't surrounded by the darkness because there's almost a sooty feeling, like your house is never clean when there's a ghost. It's the weirdest thing.
Right.
So I have the prayer ready. If it's
Okay.
okay, I will read it. And again, I'm grateful to you for the opportunity.
Oh, of course.
This is the compassion prayer for suicide. Heavenly Father, my precious one has ended his life. Therefore, I most humbly ask that your gentle angels of transition guide my beloved one to the heaven world right now. I request that forgiveness be given, Father, for whatever events or circumstances led to his decision to leave mortal life. I ask, Father, that you embrace my dearest one with the depth of your compassion right now. I humbly request, Father, that you provide healing to fill the dark, angry, or profoundly sad places in his very soul with the powerful restoration of the light of your divine love right now. My heart is aching, Father, with deep despair. I pray that you will help me to understand his death with your light of compassion and without judgment. I humbly pray, Father, for love and healing for my entire grieving family right now. Please help us to understand and accept this heartbreaking moment and the days ahead with your divine grace. Thank you, Father, for loving him. Thank you, Father, for loving me. Thank you, Father. Amen.
Well, you know, when you meet someone and you tell them that you do something like I do or something like you do, you get one of these reactions. They're either you're a rock star or you are a Satanist or you're full of baloney.
I am on hundreds and hundreds of pages on the internet now. I have my own YouTube channel and 2 websites, and I have 8 books out. The 9th one is 100,000 words into it. I just don't put up with it. I confront them with physics. I teach the physics of metaphysics.
Mm-hmm.
When you can remote view, it is basically string theory and quantum entanglement made manifest. That is hard science. Metaphysics is the science beyond what you think you know. And I absolutely, maybe it's having been, retired naval officer, I retired at the commander level. I just don't put up with it. I just come right back at them with facts and science that you can look up. When you do that, you get them to see things in a different way, and you give them a different point of view because you don't waver. If you have to believe it, it has to live within you, or you can't do this job. Yeah. And if you are the voice for the dead, because they don't have a voice, half of them don't know they're dead. It's really amazing. Battles everywhere, people who drown, they don't know they're dead, half of them. You want to help them. And they have impact the living in a detrimental way, and they're still earning karma. Once you cross them over, that karmic clock stops. And that's something everyone should want to do for the ones they love, or the ones they don't know, or the people in a hospital. I have something that's available on ghosthelpers.com, which is a crossing over prayer card. And we had a very interesting incident. They were redoing a children's wing at Scripps Hospital in La Jolla, California. And the nurses were really anxious because in that particular, one of the rooms in that wing, a child died with a respiratory illness. Well, ever after that, any child that was brought into that room, even if they had a broken leg, left with a respiratory illness.
Wow.
Because the little boy didn't know he was dead. So they placed that crossing over prayer card inside the walls during construction. And no child ever left that room with a respiratory illness that they didn't walk in with. It shifted it. No fanfare, no explanation. But the nurses were so relieved, because why would you want a child to suffer?
Oh, right.
Living or dead? I mean, we all have children here. So it's a really big deal. It's just a really big deal. And again, that opportunity to understand the mechanics of how this works, it's just really important.
Now, did I read correctly? You have 8 books?
I have 8 books out. I'm working on the 9th.
Oh, wow. And all those are available on your website. Are they available anywhere else?
They're all on Amazon. 6 of the 8 are audiobooks, and they're sold all over the world. Apparently, a lot of people speak English because my Italian and Spanish isn't enough to translate a book. So I do speak a couple other languages, but not as fluently as I would like to. So yes, they're audiobooks. The ghost stories are audiobooks, and a lot of them, especially the volume 3, are things that happened to me personally. Yes, the things in the story I did, so it's personal, but there were things in this book that happened to me or to my husband that were so unnerving and dramatic that there was no other explanation. And I needed people to see how these things take place and that you're not crazy and that there's no such thing as no such thing.
Right. And you have social media?
I'm on LinkedIn and that's it. And I'm not on social media for many, many reasons. But there's a lot of information on ghosthelpers.com and it's mirrored on tinaerwin.com. And I just wanted people to see, if somebody looks me up, they can find that website with my name. If they've got a ghost, people stumble on that website a lot when they look up ghost. So that's a big help for them.
Do you just give advice, or do you do actual one-on-one counseling with people?
I do one-on-one counseling. I have quite a few clients, and I clear houses, and I help people with very unusual spiritual problems that they just can't seem to get resolved. And if I can't help them, I tell them. There's no point spending money on something that I'm going to tell you I can't do, or I don't feel can be done. So, yeah.
I don't mind if a ghost wants to come and visit me, but I'm like you. Let's help them pass on.
Yes, and again, we're having so much death right now.
Yeah.
And there's the other element that's happening that's unnerving people is we know there's human trafficking. And I have sent out a call to the people who are willing to help I did a prayer for the victims of human trafficking, and that's also in the Crossing Over prayer book, but to send every child or human being who is trafficked an angel. If all of us sent them angels, it would change their frequency. If you change their frequency, then things have to shift around them. If thousands and thousands of these victims had their frequency changed, could we change what's happening from the privacy of our own homes?
Yes.
And angels earn karma by helping mortal people. And when people say, oh, I don't want to bother my angel, it's like, that's their job. When you let them do their job, I'm very good at delegating. When you let them do their job, they grow, they advance. They have the experience of truly assisting a mortal person. Is really good thing for the angels too. So when you call upon an angel, maybe your teenagers are driving tonight and you're worried, put an angel or two in their car.
Yeah.
It's a quiet, respectful, you're not preaching to your son or daughter. You're just offering this gentle assistance, and it can change energy. If you're in a meeting with a lot of angry people, fill the room with angels. You cannot ask an angel to direct how the meeting will be resolved because that violates free will.
Mm-hmm.
But you can ask them to be present. Their presence changes the frequency of the room and elevates the energy in the room, and people are not as combative.
Well, personally, I believe in God, and I think we need God more in our lives, especially now, the way the world is. But I mean, we always need God in our lives, and I'm just afraid that Satan has kind of gotten his hands on this world and has been steering people away from God, and I truly believe that's why things are getting as bad as they are. I don't want to get on my soapbox, but I feel like God has been talking to me a lot lately. He's come up in conversations a lot more lately, and we need him.
We absolutely need God, and we need to feel that it's the priesthood of all believers. Anyone, anywhere, anytime can speak directly to God and request assistance. Mm-hmm. Anyone can speak to Christ. Anyone can speak to any high spiritual being in the higher realms and ask for assistance. And when you do that, it creates string theory. You're connecting and connecting. And the more you're connecting and connecting, you end up, instead of a spider web line, you have the transatlantic cable line. That's a big, strong connection to the higher realms. And when you love your family, when you love your children or your spouses, I mean, my sweet husband just brought me coffee. We've been married 50 years. It's one of my greatest pleasures in life is to be married to this man. So when you love and that echoes through your whole family, you are changing your little environment, but like cogs in a wheel, we're all connected. It changes everything as it continues to echo out. And I think you're absolutely right. The more we are connected to the divine in any way, shape, or form, and what's happened is, you see a lot of New Age people connect to spirit, but spirit can be anything from a black magician to in their mind, a ghost. Connect, and they cannot seem to say the word God. They cannot say the word Christ. They cannot relate to the Buddha nature, the beauty of the whole Buddhist tradition, or some of the beauty in so many of these other spiritual traditions, whether it's Navajo or Hopi or whatever it is. Those that honor the higher realms, there is a great beauty. I spent a lot of time in Monument Valley. I don't know if you've ever been there.
No, I haven't.
It is one of the most remarkable and spiritual places any human being can ever visit. And there's some other elements in Monument Valley that perhaps I can share at another time, but there is a beauty and a peace and a timelessness there that makes you feel that you are one. It's like the most fabulous cathedral you could ever be in. Unless, of course, you're in the Pacific Northwest and you live in a forest, and there's your cathedral of trees.
Well,
So,
if I could add one more thing to that, we always seem to call upon God whenever things are going bad. We need to remember him even when things are going good. And I think it's where we fall short. That's when we go into bad times. But
it's the gratitude element.
That's exactly right. Gratitude changes your attitude.
Absolutely.
And once again, what is your website?
Ghosthelpers.com.
All right. And you are on LinkedIn. And also, do you have your link to the Amazon in case people just want to go straight to that?
Just look up Tina Erwin books.
Okay.
Erwin with an Erwin, or look up Ghost Stories from the Ghost Point of View, and all these books show up. And there's a grief book and a frequency book and all different kinds of books on there that help people understand all these elements of metaphysics. The ghost story books, though, open your eyes to what it's like to have been dead for 400 years and have no idea you were dead. And when you're moving people on without judgment, you have to move on some really difficult ghosts, really, really, really horrific beings.
We should get back together and do nothing but ghost stories on another show.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I love ghost stories.
I don't think I've really done that on my show yet, so maybe we should do that.
Yeah, October sounds good.
Hey, let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay.
But anyway, thank you, Tina, for coming on my show. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to put all those links in the description so people can find you easy.
Okay. And I'll send you some other information and we'll just stay connected.
Sounds perfect. And I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, well, I hope you'll come back, hit that subscribe button. And for my regulars, you guys are awesome because, well, you make it possible for me to do this. Until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network